Welcome to ChannelX TV, sponsored by Volo. I'm delighted to be joined today by a very old friend, Emma Jones, founder of Enterprise Nation. Welcome, Emma. How are you?
I'm good, thank you, Chris, but please less of the old when you introduce me.
I didn't mean old. I meant I've known you a long time. Apologies for that. But we're here today to discuss something. I don't know if it's exciting, but it's certainly important. We've got a new government, and this time it's Labour. For the first time in 14 years, the parties have switched sides in the House of Commons. What I want to find out is how it's going to impact businesses, especially SMEs, businesses that are owner-operated. And I know you've done tons with government. So for people that don't know you, Emma, just tell us a little bit about Enterprise Nation, what you do and how you interact with government bodies.
Yep, delighted to, Chris. So Enterprise Nation, we are a small business support platform and provider. So what that means is we attract lots of small businesses. So this year we should support just under 1 million small businesses from across the UK and Ireland. So we operate in 2 territories, and we connect small businesses for free to lots of resource. So e-learning, training, downloadable guides, events. We do a daily event called Lunch and Learn, which happens every working weekday. And we also connect small businesses to support programs. And that's kind of the second bit of the business, is we deliver support programs for small businesses. So that's anything from how to export, digital training, how to raise finance. We work with lovely corporate partners and also with government to deliver programs. So I guess kind of taking that all together, the way in which we interact with government is we represent the views of small business to government. We've been doing it for a long time. So back to the old friend piece. I have been working with government since Gordon Brown was Prime Minister. So
Whoa.
very first time we had number 10 engagement, Gordon Brown was Prime Minister, and he had bought the UK something called Global Entrepreneurship Week. Anyway, however many years on from then, we have had a very active relationship where essentially government kind of say to us, how are small businesses feeling? What are their key challenges? What should the role of government be in addressing those challenges? And that's the role we play.
Fantastic. So I'm going to dive in. I'm just going to pick a whole load of different topics and would love your opinion on them.
Sure.
But I'm going to start with the big one, which I don't actually think it was in the King's speech, but Keir Starmer made a lot of it during the run-up to the election, Brexit. And this is particularly of interest to me because I've been reading up on GPRS, which is product protection. And even to sell to Northern Ireland, you're going to have an EU responsible person as of 13th of December, and certainly for selling to Europe. So there's still a lot of European red tape which is impacting us. What would you like to see government do? What have businesses been telling you that they want sorted on Brexit that's not really working? And Brexit's a success. We've left the EU, like it or not. A lot of people don't like it. But Labour have said they want a reset of relationships with the EU. So what do businesses want? What would you like to see for the people that talk to you?
Well, it's interesting. And this is quite a historic challenge for small businesses. So I kind of say, in a way, we've kind of heard and seen this challenge over the last 3 years, which is so many small businesses put EU trade on hold. So Brexit happened. Everything became too difficult. There was too much friction involved in the process. So businesses put EU trade on hold. But Chris, I don't need to tell you that small businesses are very entrepreneurial. So if you put a barrier in their way, they will just go round it and say, okay, well, where else do I go if this barrier is facing me? So what we have seen, and again, you know, an industry in which you're steeped, enabled by selling on online marketplaces, small businesses have looked beyond the EU and they've been selling into other territories. So when the Conservatives were in place, they were signing free trade agreements. We've now got them with New Zealand, Australia. The previous government started to sign them with individual US states because, of course, we don't yet have a UK-US free trade.
And I believe they were talking to India.
So this is the thing. So they were looking at growing territories and saying, right, let's do free trade agreements there. Our advice, and this was kind of two and a half years ago, at that point, our advice to small businesses was follow the free trade agreements, watch where government is going. Every free trade agreement had what was called an SME chapter in it. So every agreement had something around how are we simplifying trade for small businesses. So our advice was follow the agreements, look at those territories. Sure enough, that is what small businesses have done. So I kind of feel, as you say, Labour has come in to say, let's reset the relationship with the EU.
Yeah. Which would be great, to be honest, because a lot of Germany, massive sales to Germany in the past. France, another big country.
But small businesses have kind of moved on. So this is the thing, it's one of those cases for me where kind of businesses move quicker than the infrastructure in which kind of government sets for them. So small businesses have been like, well, hold on, we're now trading in the States and in the Far East and in Australia. And of course, that's not to say they're not going to retract and kind of say, let's look at closer to home. But businesses did what businesses do best. And they said, okay, if the market here has been closed to me, I will look to see where the market has opened up. And actually, just from a representative perspective, and especially again in your world of e-commerce, the Institute of Export set up a task force, particularly looking at e-commerce and things that the government could do to assist with exporting. And what the government has been doing, and regardless of politically who's running the country, this won't change. HMRC for 12 plus months have been building something called a single trade window. So what this is intended to do is to make the process of customs documentation a lot easier for small businesses. So I think things like that will help. Let's see what happens as our new Prime Minister tries to re-engage with the EU. But in the meantime, small businesses are just taking their goods to other parts of the world and hopefully prospering on the back of that.
So something else, changing the subject, that business have been talking to me about is Labour's employment rights, which they're saying exploitative 0-hour contracts. I think everyone could agree that workers shouldn't be exploited, but they're also talking about giving people practically the same rights on day one when they start a new job as someone that's been there for 20, 30 years. And I've got a bit of an issue with this because in the past, I think, if you start a new job, you could be dismissed without having to be made redundant or given an excuse for 2 years. And I think even if you've got a 3-month probationary period, I think sometimes it takes longer than that to find out someone's no good. Take them on at the moment. It's nice and sunny and warm in the mornings. Getting up and getting to work for 6 o'clock, not a problem. Dark winters, maybe I'm not so good at getting out of bed when it's cold and snowy. And you find I'm late every day. So small businesses are saying that they don't, it's going to be expensive for them. What do you think? Is Labour doing the right thing or the wrong thing here?
So this worries me. And as you say, there were good things that came from the King's speech around buying more from small businesses. There's a Procurement Act coming into effect. Maybe we'll talk about that. But this does worry me. And it worries me for a couple of reasons. One is that small businesses will think twice about employing because of
That's what they're telling me. Do I want to take someone on that I can't easily get rid of?
But then this is the thing, and again, and actually one thing that we quite regularly call on government, and I do think this government is looking to change this, which is when you look across different departments, we've always said you should look at small business across the briefs and objectives of all departments. So what I'm trying to say here is Department for Work and Pensions has a big objective at the moment to try and encourage people who are 50 plus, who've left the workforce, to come back to the workforce. Department for Education are really focused on how do we get the value of apprenticeships and make sure that small businesses are hiring apprenticeships. We have a new entrepreneur as a prisons minister in the form of James Timpson, who's saying, I'm going to let offenders out of prison. I'd really love businesses to employ ex-offenders. So you have,
and they need jobs.
And they need jobs. So you have lots of other parts of government saying what we need small businesses to do is to employ people. But then you have this coming in where small businesses will think, but if I employ someone, have I got the flexibility that I need to be able to do the things that I need to do? So I'm worried that companies will stop hiring. The thing that worries me, which is a little bit more difficult to kind of articulate, is does this start to create a lack of trust between employees and employers? And bearing in mind, I am an employer of Enterprise Nation. So we have a team of just under 50 people. So I kind of come at this from a vantage point also of, I run my own team. And certainly any person who runs a team at the moment has had to contend with us now all being hybrid. So you have to build trust with your workforce because you can't see them every day. So we've all moved, and we've all really embraced that there's new ways of working, that, as you said,
and the hybrid working is something that from day one new employees are going to get the right to ask for. So
so we all have to get used to it, and trust is inherent. You have to trust that the employee is creating the output, and it's kind of not really up to you to say in which room they're working, what time they're working, etc. This kind of friction that is put in between them and us, even as a kind of philosophy, this is what worries me, because to create and power a successful hybrid organization, the trust has to be very free flowing. It has to be from employer to employee, and the employee has to trust the employer. And that's just the other thing that makes me nervous about rights, is as soon as you get legalistic and you start to talk about a them and us type division in employment, my fear is that you start to sort of a feeling of mistrust comes in. And at the moment, I just don't think we can afford that, because we're in an economic position where, of course, the new Labour government is saying we've inherited something, it's worse than we thought it was. Of course, we're big believers at Enterprise Nation that small businesses have got a huge role to play in getting us out of this. The government keeps on talking about growth. Where is it going to come from? Of course, it's going to come from big business, but you've got 6 million small firms who you also need to grow. This is not the time that you want to start creating a mistrust of business when you're relying on them so much to power up the economy.
So we've only got a couple of minutes left, Emma, but I want to come on to something more positive that Labour, or I think is more positive, that Labour has been talking about, which is Skills England, which is a new body to boost training, do what you've been doing for the last decade and a half or so, which is encourage training both for individuals and for businesses. What would you like to see come out of this? And you touched on apprenticeships already, and yes, there's the apprenticeship levy for large businesses, which can fund small businesses taking on apprenticeships. But what would you like to see?
Well, there's one thing, and in the courtesy of time, Chris, there's one. Sorry, and you can maybe hear a siren going across it. So this is how much we need to see it. Emergency. The one thing I'd love to see with Skills England is a very constructive and close relationship with the private sector. And it's interesting that you and I are talking today, because just yesterday, Google launched a new program called Google AI Works, which is all around helping the employees of small businesses to get skilled up in AI training. For me, that is a perfect complement to what Skills England is trying to do. And therefore, I would love to think, and again, the Chancellor is talking a lot about public-private partnerships. I would love to see, because when you look at digital adoption, again, Chris, your world, the people who are enabling digital adoption, Google, Vodafone, Uber, Meta, these are the people, Sage from a cloud accounting perspective, these are the people who are providing the products that small businesses use that enables digital adoption. So I would love to see Skills England work really closely with the tech providers and enablers to make sure that, in my world, small businesses get exactly the right skills training on exactly the right products that they need at the right time. So that's the partnership we'd love to see.
Fantastic. Well, Emma, I want to thank you so much for your time. It's definitely going to be interesting with a new government, because they're going to have different ideas and do different things. And there's so much we haven't spoken about today, like infrastructure, building projects, Great British Energy, and a whole load of other things. But for those that want to find out more, how do they get hold of you? How do they get hold of Enterprise Nation? And for getting hold of you, actually, well, below this video, we'll put your LinkedIn link URL so people can get hold of you. But how do they get hold of Enterprise Nation, and where's their first point of contact?
Yeah, so enterprisenation.com. We have a community team, so anyone can message hello@enterprisenation.com. I'm on emma@enterprisenation.com. So yeah, I would encourage, Chris, all of your listeners, especially if they're small business owners, please visit the platform. We've got loads of resource and support available, so would love to welcome your community.
Fantastic. Emma, thanks so much for your time.
Thanks, Chris. Lovely to see you.